your mind.
Good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
Myself, Stephen George. Good evening.
Good evening. It's Sunday, the 29th of July, 2018. Loads of things going on. Loads of information coming in. So much information that we can't cover everything in the show because we'd be here for probably 3 hours talking about everything that's going on. So we're going to have to break it up. So, but we will be touching base on a few things that came in during the week. Now, we have two guests on the show tonight. The first guest is a lady called Jillian from Jilly Juice, and our second guest is Kevin Hendrick from HearAll Hearing, and we'll be talking about how important it is to get your hearing tested.
Sorry? What?
Yeah.
What?
Mind you, with the things that you hear these days, I mean, you probably do need your hearing tested, you know, you hear things. But, so we're going to have great information from both guests. But before we do that, let's find out what the communication channels are.
Okay, folks, communication channels are...
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
Yes, OYM chat room can be found on the website there. The website address is oymradio.com. You will see the links on the left-hand side. You will see the link for the YouTube channel. You will also see the link for the email address, the Skype, the anti-social media, Facebook and Twitter. You can catch us on there. We're also on the MeWe platform as well, so if you are on MeWe, just look us up, Open Your Mind Radio, and do befriend us there. We also have as I said, the email address, info@oymradio.com, and we do appreciate getting emails. If you have any news, just something that you want to make us aware of, or if you're a first-time listener to the show and just let us know your thoughts, what you thought about the show, that is the email address. We also have links on the website there for the TuneIn Radio link, or the TuneIn Radio application. That's a free app for your iPhone or your smartphone where you can check us out all day, every day. We also monitor People's Internet Radio, the chat room over there as well. And a big hi to everyone logged into both of the chat rooms. You're very welcome this evening.
Brilliant stuff. Right, okay, let's start off with the few bits and pieces that we have. The first one is, we had an email in from one of our listeners called Daryl, who's a beekeeper, and he just wanted to say that he has his hives, the type of hives that he has are called ware hives. It's a ware design, which is W-A-R-R-E, which is a very bee-friendly way to keep bees. And he just asked us to give it a mention and to get the listeners to research ware hives and consider them with the use of shungite. So he uses shungite with his beehives, and he uses a ware design for his beehives. So excellent stuff. Well done, Daryl. Keep it going. Steve?
Yeah, it's, actually I've seen in the, for anyone who's in Ireland, I don't know if it's the same in all countries, but in Ireland at the moment, the Aldi chain of stores are actually selling it's like a wooden construction, some class of a little house, and it's supposed to be very good for bees and insects. So if you want to keep some bees or insects, preferably bees, I suppose, they're selling these little things off. So whether it's a ware design or not, now I actually don't know. Anyway, we move on. The journal.ie says, they report, we are truly sorry, the Permanent TSB says, in relation to 22 lost homes because of its mistakes. The omission comes as the company turned its first profit on its core business in 8 years. Permanent TSB and Springboard Mortgages have written to 1,372 mortgage holders to inform them about serious failures in the management of their loans. According to a statement from the firms today, up to 61 homeowners who were impacted by the mistakes in interest rates charged lost their properties. As many as 22 of those people may have avoided this situation and kept their homes had the failures not occurred. As part of the redress scheme announced today, those who lost ownership of their home will receive compensation payment of €50,000. If the property was buy to rent, the compensation will be reduced to just €25,000. In cases where Permanent TSB's failure was a key factor, any money still owed by the customer on the mortgage account will be written off. An investigation by the central bank revealed that other customers may also have suffered serious consequences as a result of the failures.
So these failures, and people have possibly lost their houses and committed suicide.
Yeah.
And they're going to compensate them, what, 55,000?
50,000 or
50,000.
25. The lower figure, yeah.
Well, there you go. That's the value of your life.
That's an insult.
It's a big insult. I'd sue them. Sue them. Bring them. Don't accept the money. Bring them to court and sue them. Right, theindependent.co.uk. Now, you probably heard this during the week, that medical cannabis to be made available on prescription in UK after being approved for use by government. Medical cannabis has been made available on prescription after it was approved for use by the government. Doctors will be able to prescribe medicine derived from marijuana by the autumn, the Home Office announced. The Home Secretary, Sajid Javid, said recent cases involving sick children made it clear to me that our position on cannabis-related medical products was not satisfactory. No, Sherlock. Fill in the blank. Following advice from 2 sets of independent advisors, I have taken the decision to reschedule cannabis-derived medical products, meaning they will be available on prescription. This will help patients with an exceptional clinical need. Mr. Javid said it was in no way a first step to the legalization of cannabis for recreational use. Possession of the Class B drug will still carry an unlimited fine and up to 5 years in jail, while dealers face 14 years in prison. Well, we've always said that on the show. It's not really about the recreational use of cannabis. It's really just to get the medical cannabis approved on a license so people can go and get it under prescription. And that's a start in the right direction. And I'm glad to see the UK doing that, because Ireland need to now catch up and do the same thing. Steve.
Yeah, some more news from the journal.ie. It says, gap in law means watchdog can't probe complaints after a TD has left office. The state ethics watchdog said there is a gap in the law, which means it does not have the power to investigate breaches by TDs who have left office. The lacuna in the law relates to breaches in ethics law, while a politician was a member of either the Shannon or the Dáil, but was only highlighted after they left. In its annual report, the Standards in Public Office, the SIPO, states that during 2017 the Commission examined a complaint where information came to light indicating that there may have been a contravention of the Ethics Act by a former member of the Dáil. However, under the current legislation, the body said there is no mechanism for examining possible contraventions by a member of the Oireachtas other than a minister or minister of state in circumstances where the matter is highlighted after the member is no longer an office holder. The report states that Commission has no authority in relation to the actions or conduct of a sitting TD who was not an office holder, and adding that the legislation also does not allow complaints to be made about former office holders to the Dáil Committee on Members' Interests.
Well,
what do you think of that?
That needs to be changed, and that's...
It does, because, I'm awfully sorry, but we only heard yesterday about that cardinal over in America, where the Pope has basically stripped him of his cardinalship, or whatever it's called.
His rights, yeah.
His rights.
Yeah,
okay, he's still going to be a priest, but while an investigation is ongoing. Yeah. But, I'm sorry, if someone done something while they were in office, then I think they should be held accountable.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Even if they're outside of office, if they've left.
Yeah.
Because that applies to law, criminal law, so why doesn't it apply with politicians? No, that law will have to be changed, definitely. Because there's too many TDs that's going to jump ship. If what's going on with Donald Trump and everything else, and they start bringing over here, which they will do, and start cleaning the swamp over here, all these TDs will jump ship, and then they'll say, oh, well, you can't do me because the law says you can't. Well, that law needs to be changed quickly. Anyway, here's your week.
Yeah, not too much to report on my week. But as you mentioned there, in just about the medical use of cannabis, we did mention last week, and I think we may have mentioned it previously as well, about the new shop that has opened up in Stephen's Green in Dublin, the CBD Relief Shop. Well, isn't it funny, because you know the way I kind of say that I plant seeds, not cannabis seeds, but I just plant seeds in people's minds, and I try to virtually water those seeds and see what comes up. Well, a few people in work during the week, one of the individuals that I actually work with, came to me and he said, I was thinking of you the other day. And I says, oh, okay, why? And he says, I read something on Facebook, he said, about this new shop in Dublin. He says, they're going to be supplying cannabis oil. And I said, yeah, sure, that's news. I've heard about that. And he says, I read on the article, and like, it's saying a lot of the stuff that you've been saying over the past couple of years. And I went, yeah, you sound surprised. And he said, well, I just kind of thought you were a bit nutty sometimes. And I said, no, unfortunately. Well, I said, maybe I am sometimes, but no. I said, in the, like, kind of that sort of thing, I said, no, we generally kind of do our due diligence. And we generally kind of keep our ear to the grindstone, or nose to the grindstone, ear to the floor, or whatever the hell the saying is. So yeah, he was talking about that, and he seemed a little bit more open-minded. And then I had another lady, another colleague, she said to me during the week as well that someone she knows had just been diagnosed with Parkinson's. And I went, okay. And she says, yeah, oh my God, she says, and she's a baker, like she bakes, and she does wedding cakes and all this sort of thing. And she says, she's in bits because she reckons that's it, her life is over. And she said she's only, like, I think 53 years of age. So of course, I went on to the internet, to the article, this news article, in relation to the CBD shop in Dublin, and they have a list of all the things that CBD oil is beneficial for. And on the list, one of them, as we know already, is Parkinson's. So I showed her this, and I said, have a look at that, and I said, give that to your friend. And she's looking at it, and she's going, you said something about this before, and I went, yes, I did. And I said, and look at all, obviously there was a list of benefits to the oil, and she's reading through the list, and she's going, how come we didn't know about this? And I'm saying, and I had to say to her, so because you're not very open-minded. I says, when you're open-minded, I said, yeah, you'll entertain a thought without actually accepting it. But she looked at the list, she took the note of the website, and she was very excited. So I have to say, that's two seeds that I've been planting and watering over the past couple of years that are starting to come to fruition. So I'm quite happy about that.
Excellent. Well done.
That's it. I'm patting myself in the back now, and I'm sitting back. That's my week. How's yours?
Well, see, isn't it always a catalyst somewhere that wakes people up?
Yeah.
Something is the trigger, a death in the family or a health problem or something, and that seems to be the catalyst for it.
Yeah.
And before we bring Jillian on, because Jillian will probably have loads of input on helping us with this as well, with certain symptoms with her juice. So before we bring Jillian on, I just want to say I did pop down to someone during the week who was suffering from COPD, which is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and he was working in a factory that had asbestos.
Yeah.
And over the years he didn't wear a mask, and so obviously he's having major problems now. So I went down and I gave him some information regarding serapeptides, because serapeptides is great for clearing any mucus, and also it's great for inflammations. So he was going to check that out. I gave him information on the relation of COPD and serapeptides. I'll also going to be suggested to him. I gave him a quick pain genie treatment just to show him, because he's completely unaware of this information that we talk about. But I told him that I'd give him a full pain genie treatment. It's up to him to let me know when he wants that. But I showed him the serapeptides and said, go down to the shop, buy these, give them a go, and see how you get on. I was also speaking to another, not so much an extended family member, but somebody that's involved in the family who's suffering really bad with arthritis at the age of I think she's only 29, 30. And I said to her, look, these are serapeptides, go down and try them, because nothing else is working for her. Give them a go and see how you get on. I told her your story about your mother-in-law.
Yeah.
I said, look, go down, and which is a great example.
Well, my mother-in-law, she's still taking it. She's still taking the serapeptides every morning, one tablet, 250,000 units, and she's also using the magnesium spray.
Yeah.
And she hasn't been complaining.
Brilliant. And my elbow has been great using the spray. And my partner came in today and she said, the one day I miss using the spray is the one day the pain comes back.
Wow.
So, there you go. That's everything there. And the last thing on the list before we bring in Jillian is I posted up 2 videos during the week. You might have seen them on YouTube. One is showing you what we were talking about, the internal body cleanser. Now, it's not advice, and we're not medical experts, and it's something that I do, and the disclaimer is, if you do it, then it's down to you, and, don't blame us, alright? But basically all it is spring water, it's sodium bicarb, and a lemon. So, if you watch the video, I do a pH litmus test with the water as well, and show you the alkalinity changing, going up and then going down, because the lemon is acid. But I've noticed taking that, once a week, that it's made, I feel much better. I feel, it's not a fantastic difference, but I have noticed a difference, which is a good thing. So, and the other video that we did was to show you how to test shungite. Basically, you can do the battery test with the light bulb, but I just got a multimeter and put it on continuity, and you touch the shungite, and if it bleeps, then obviously it's good shungite. If it doesn't bleep, then you got the wrong stuff. So so them videos on our YouTube channel, go over and check them out and see what you think. Right, okay.
Just very quickly, if I must say, I lost this. I'm holding up my shungite pendant now. I thought it was lost, and I found it during the week, because remember I mentioned to you just before the show, I'm getting some aches and pains in the morning time, so I've started to carry my shungite, so it's in my pocket now at all times.
That's me.
That's He's got his round his neck.
That's my new one, and do you notice the M on it?
The M?
Well, the M, that's the scorpion sign.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought it'd be fancy.
Okay, well, there's nothing fancy on mine.
Okay. Well, no, look, it does the job. Right, let's bring our guest in. Steve has Jillian's bio, and then we'll bring her in.
Yes, Jillian Epperly has been studying and implementing holistic health practices independent from the traditional education and medical practitioners for about 5 years. What promoted Jillian to write a book and develop a protocol was her own battle with a chronic illness that she was not treatable, and she has since reversed with specific measurable results. As part of that journey, she uncovered the business behind the allopathic and holistic industries and found the root cause to all cancer, disease, chronic illness, autoimmune disorders and paralysis occurring within the population. Using deductive reasoning, she has found a way to possibly reverse those issues entirely, creating a clean slate for future generations. The past 3 years, she has been collaborating with like-minded individuals, sharing information back and forth, reporting on results and their experiences, of which she shares with everyone in her social media groups. Armed with proven results from her protocol and methods, many of her collaborators recommend Jillian to their friends and family for education and a full understanding of their core health issues, the last pieces of the puzzle of why their health has been failing and what they finally need to do about it. Reaching out through her large online following and local community, she guides friends and family down the harrowing path from poor to amazing health. Wow, looking forward to this.
Fantastic. Good evening, Jillian. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. I really appreciate you being on here and being able to share my research with all of you.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot for coming on. Now, obviously, we read out your bio there. You got involved in this, and we actually heard from a listener. Thanks to the listener who gave us the information. They said, can you please get Jillian on and talk about your juice? And there's fantastic reports about your juice. So tell us how you got into it and tell us what it's all about.
Okay, so I got into it because I was trying to figure out how to reverse my own issues. And it was something I've been dealing with since, in my early 20s. And I learned how to manage it, but I've noticed that all the decisions that I was making in life were based upon, me filtering my decision-making process through my mutations, through my disease. And so in a lot of ways, it caused me to kind of jump from one thing to another thing, which gives me a lot of, I would say, exposure to different people and has opened my mind to, almost everything, which then had me start searching for different remedies. So I would ask, like my mother, she recommended that I would go and talk to an allopathic doctor about trying to figure out, how to reverse my PMDD. That was the issue that I was dealing with, was premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So she's like, well, go to a doctor and see if they had something. And all they really could prescribe me was like birth control pills or Prozac. And I was not going to, deal with that, knowing that those things were poisonous to your body. So what had become upon the holistic industry is that I was listening to satellite radio because I met my husband on the internet, and I was traveling around the country and on the truck with him. And one of the talk show hosts, like Alex Jones, was talking about anti-vax and the chemtrails and all the different truther stuff that's out there. And one of the big things was all the different holistic remedies to deal with whatever issues that you have that wasn't part of the allopathic world, or what I thought wasn't part of the allopathic world. And so I tried some of the products that he was, putting out there. And then I got onto Facebook and joined all these different holistic groups and saw that there was a common theme with everybody. They were always recommending some kind of herb. They were always recommending some kind of detox. They were always recommending some kind of like probiotic supplement or even some kind of probiotic liquid, whether it was like a pill, powder, supplement, or shake type of thing. And I tried them all. I did everything. And for some reason, it just didn't take. Now, the detoxes did work for about temporary. I felt amazing, but it didn't sustain itself. It didn't last very long. And I was still going through my different hormonal influences and changes that was impacting my whole life and my relationship. So I noticed that kombucha and apple cider vinegar was something that everybody was talking about. They were all, getting good reviews about it. And I tried the apple cider vinegar, couldn't sustain it. There's no way I could do apple cider vinegar. And even with honey, there's no way I could do that, right?
Yeah.
And then I tried the kombucha. And I did the kombucha, and I had like 2 of those kombuchas a day because I heard that lactobacillus was it was a major component in battling candida, because I found that the underlying cause from what I've seen out there was candida was always seemed to be like the main issue. And so that's what had me then look at the whole probiotic side of it, because candida was something that I was dealing with, which was like yeast issues. And so I did the kombucha, and I noticed I started getting side effects from the kombucha. My top tooth was crumbling, and I was still experiencing the PMDD episodes, which is basically just like PMS on steroids. So if you've seen women out there, they're like complete monsters because their hormones are way out of whack, right? And I was one of those, where I'd be really nice one day and then really just erratic the next day, right? And it'd just be like night and day, right?
Okay.
So
I'm not saying anything. I'm very tempted.
I'm not saying a word here. No.
No, I get it. And believe me, my poor husband, he had to watch all these changes, as I was going through his healing process. So then I got off the kombucha, and then somebody in passing, a friend of mine who is an enthusiast, like a fermentation enthusiast who does a lot of fermenting of beer and wine and all of that, was fermenting pickles. And so I tried the pickles, fermented with the key thing. It was the salt that was the main component of this fermentation, not sugar and not vinegar, because sugar feeds candida, and candida feeds off of sugar and it feeds off of heavy metals, right? So if you're fermenting sugar, you're just compounding the issue, right? So I was asking him, well, what kind of pickles? He said they were salt pickles because they give it better bacteria and also better nutrients. So I did more research and found that, the lacto-fermented pickles was probably the key, and that would be easy because I knew pickles were good, and I tried and I did the pickles, and then finally, pickles weren't working because I had to do all these different, adding different spices, which I'm against, and adding different things that were causing all these crazy anomalies, and it didn't really taste good all the time. And then who can, eat a gallon of pickle juice a day? You can't even make a gallon, unless you have like a bunch of buckets in your whole house, right? Because the water displacement is so huge with all those pickles. So then I segued into carrots, and carrots was not very easy. And then finally I found lacto-fermented cabbage. And so finally, when I did the lacto-fermented cabbage, which I was using 1 tablespoon of salt, okay, and to 2 cups of water, to 2 cups of cabbage and kale, I noticed that there was a huge difference in my health. Now, at first, I only did like 1 teaspoon of salt, and then a typo when I was trying to explain this to people in my Facebook group and all that. There's a typo, and I put 1 tablespoon, and we were all doing 1 tablespoon, and so was I. And then the people that were under the impression it was 1 teaspoon weren't getting the results, but the 1 tablespoon of people were getting the results. So I made that connection. Okay, salt was a major component. And then I saw that candida, mortal enemy is lactobacillus, and it was the underlying cause of all cancer, disease, and chronic illness. So while I was in that research mode, right, or explain this to everybody, I was in a research mode where I was then Googling stuff about, okay, what's the fungus associated with diabetes? What's the fungus associated with, Alzheimer's? Like, I look at every single disease out there, and I found that Candida was the common underlying cause. And then I also noticed that I was getting extreme benefits with my health from that juice. So here's the protocol, just so you have an understanding of what it is, what I developed through feedback from people, as well as just what I kind of initially intuitively knew. So it is 2 cups of cabbage or kale. You cut it up, and then 2 cups of distilled water or reverse osmosis water, not highly alkaline water, and then 1 tablespoon of salt, and then you puree it. You put it in the blender, and then you put it in the blender, puree it, and then you pour it into a jar, and you repeat the process. Okay, and then you fill up your jar to about a gallon, and then you leave it on your counter between 65 and 72 degrees. And then for 3 days, and it ferments. You mix and stir, and then you drink, because you want this to be very juicy, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to take as much as you can in a short amount of time, okay, to then induce waterfalls. And what that is when your body is infused with all of the nutrients from the cabbage that is being fermented and is being broken down, it's pre-digested, right? And then from the kale, and then all of the trace minerals from the pink Himalayan salt. So don't even use the table salt or even Celtic salt. Pink Himalayan salt is the best salt to use, because salt is an energizing force. And what salt does is it energizes the nutrients in the minerals that are in that salt, as well as the nutrients in the cabbage and kale that's broken down by that chemical process through fermentation. So now you have these bioavailable nutrients that is infusing your body, and is causing a major healing. And so what you're going to find is that the body is going to first heal the gut. So that's why their whole waterfalls. And I'll explain to you the difference between waterfalls and diarrhea. Diarrhea is when the body pulls all the electrolytes and everything from the body in the liquid and purges out that offending, toxin or bacteria if you've got food poisoning, right? So you're now depleted. Now you have to go and regenerate yourself and rehydrate yourself with electrolytes, right? That's from diarrhea. So when you go to a hospital, right, when you have the flu and they put you on an IV bag, those are all electrolytes. Those are saline solutions. That rehydrates the person. Okay. So with my protocol, you're actually, when you're getting those waterfalls, it's because you are now bringing in the water, the electrolytes, the nutrients. And so now the body's able to use that, what you're bringing in, and it's purging out all the foreign objects, the parasites that are in your body, the candida, which is overfed yeast, if you didn't know what that was. So yeast is actually part of your body, and when it's overfed, it turns into candida, and what it feeds on is like sugar substitutes, and heavy metals. So then there's these, and I'm going to segue a little bit, there's these little viruses that dock to the candida, and that's what drives the different cancers. Okay, so these viruses, like, let's say it's like an HPV, which is human papilloma virus, it attaches to the candida and it causes cervical cancer. That's how they have these names for these different cancers, because it's the virus that's driving that cancer and is targeted to a specific region. And then that's what causes these symptoms of cancer, right? So that's what the waterfall does, is it purges out the excess, the extra foreign objects. So, if you have parasites, if you have extra residual cancer or viruses that are floating in your body that haven't, triggered yet, you're going to be addressing that, and then you're going to purge it out your butt. So I have found now waterfalls is very refreshing, and you will be, obviously thirsty too while you're on the protocol, so be drinking water.
You just said waterfalls. Is that what you call the drink?
Yes. Well, no, I call it the actual purging, which is you're having like diarrhea coming out your butt. Yeah. It's like when you're drinking my drink, it's called JILLY juice, right? And you're drinking as much as you can. I mean, I drink as much as I can in a short amount of time to induce the waterfalls to where I'm on the toilet purging.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, which means that you may be on the toilet. Like for me now, since I'm pretty clear inside, I could do waterfalls at a quarter of a cup, and I can get waterfalls and get out whatever it is and fix my mutated cells from just daily living, because we're always being attacked at the cellular level on a daily basis. And so what happens is with someone who's really, really sick, they're going to have a lot more healing. So what's going to happen is you're do the waterfalls, and then guess what? You're going to have major healing symptoms. that are going to reflect past issues, present issues, and even future triggers. So let's say you have, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's funny that you mentioned yeast. We had a guest on, Ivor Cummings, and he was talking about breads and the chemicals in breads and all that. And I actually stopped having bread, and I have the Ryvita now. And I've noticed the difference from stopping the bread, having the Ryvita, which is like a cracker-based, product, and also taking what I said earlier about my sodium bicarb, the water, and the lemon. And I've noticed a difference in myself, and that's the difference I noticed. Now, I know you said Candida is that seems to affect everybody in some shape or form. Even people who don't realise they don't have it probably have it. And as you say, whether it's your juice or whether it's another process, it's important to try and, again, look at your diet, look at what you're eating. And the one thing I say about the cabbage, we have heard from other nutritionists that have come on the show, and they say that when you juice, you should take it within 20 minutes, because the longer you leave it, the less effective it's going to be. But you're fermenting your cabbage, that's why you're leaving it, yeah?
Yeah, so let me cycle back real quick about what you said about bicarbonate and the lemon and the yeast issues and bread. So right now, if you're taking like a bicarbonate, which is going to destroy your immune system over time, it may give you temporary relief for those symptoms that you're dealing with. If you're taking lemon, which is a detox, that's going to destroy your immune system over time. It may give you temporary relief for those specific issues that is plaguing you, but over time, you're actually going to degrade your body significantly as you keep taking it, because what's going on is you're not getting to the root cause. So I would probably just have you, explore, my protocol to look at, there are specific foods in the beginning of what you need to avoid so you don't undermine the healing process. Because what's going on is when you're taking lemons or when you're taking certain antibiotic, anti-inflammatories internally, is that you're undermining any possible healing, because that's where the healing, that's where your immune system, that's where your innate and your adaptive immune system reside in. So when you're constantly throwing the balance off with negative elements, you're actually putting yourself way behind the 8 ball. So with the cabbage and the kale, when it's fermented, it's being broken down to a pre-digested state. So that way you have access to those bioavailable nutrients that the salt is going to energize, because salt is an energizing force. And your body needs trace minerals, because there's an actual elemental composition of the human body to where oxygen is the most abundant, and then tungsten is the least abundant, right? And then you have salt as the 9th element, and then there's chloride, and then all the electrolyte, elements are between 1 and 9, and they are balancing forces. And as long as, you are taking in elements that are completely alignable with your body, you will get your body back to 100% to where you will reverse the aging process and address all symptoms, not just targeting 1 or 2, but every single symptom in your body. And that's going to happen in stages based upon how much you drink of my stuff on a daily, weekly, minutely basis. And so it's always going to be, you'll be peeling back the layers of time, because you are right now a conglomeration of mutations from when you were a child in utero, from your parents passing down mutations they passed down to you, to whatever you experienced environmental-wise or verbally or physically from child all the way to now an adult. So when you're taking my juice, you're going to go back in time through different vignettes, and you're going to be revisiting all the different traumas and mutations and sicknesses that you've ever dealt with.
Okay, so what you're talking about is Herring's law, and Herring was a homeopath who said that we heal back in time. So as people take your juice over time, they're going to be going back in time to heal them issues through their life. Yes.
And it's crazy, because I've seen stuff from back when I was like 6 years old coming up to surface, and then being finally, processed out of the body. Like my lymph nodes. Right now I'm getting stuff through my lymph nodes that are coming up, even now as a 1.5 years. Yeah. And it's all clear liquid. And it's healing. And then all of a sudden it's going to disappear. And I've seen that today. I mean, I've seen, the constipation, the diarrhea, which, not diarrhea, but like, waterfalls, But I've had like the yeast infections come to surface and go away. Those things I've dealt with. I've had headaches, skin issues, all of the things that, you know, and then even stuff that seems like it's new, it's because that's a future trigger. Like you've seen people that have dropped from an autoimmune disorder out of nowhere, right? It's not like the body has a suicide contract in it. No, there's a virus or something in there that's laying dormant, and it comes to surface when all the conditions are right. So as you get older out there in the matrix, you are actually degrading, because aging is cell degradation. So as you age, you are finding your body falling apart at different times and different things. And all of a sudden, like as you age, you're getting glasses, your skin's getting more like saggy, right? You're losing collagen. Yeah. Your muscles are not as firm. So you're basically watching people die slowly in front of you when you're watching them age. When you lose your hair, that's another sign of your integumentary system having a malfunction, a mutation. All sickness are mutations. That's what all sickness is. And so what we're doing now with my protocol is we are addressing and realizing that people are still stuck in the holistic world, stuck with the, you know, doing the serapeptase and all the different CBD oils and stuff to manage stuff, which is great, right? But now we've got to get beyond, you know, that layer and say, okay, well, you can use those kind of in the meantime to help you manage certain specific symptoms that are intolerable for you, because pain is going to be part of the healing process, because pain is healing. But you've got to have the juice in the background as your common denominator to rebuild those broken and damaged cells. Because the more you manage your symptoms with all of those pills, powder, supplements, and detoxes, the more you degrade your body even more. That's why it's so popular right now with the medical marijuana. It's because it's another antibiotic that's been repackaged. Because the holistic and the allopathic industry, I hate to say it, but they are two sides of the same coin. It's still the same negative elements that are being repackaged and sold to the masses. But there is a place for them. Okay, I'm not going to completely knock and say, hey, okay, you know, there are certain things that are not necessary. Like you don't necessarily have to take serapeptase. You don't necessarily have to take, you know, lemons. But if you are in egregious pain and you have something, you know, like if you're like opioid, you know, if you're taking opioids for major pain, continue to take it. It's like it's a psychotropic. It's something that your body is physically addicted to, and if you get off it, just like alcohol, you could really put yourself in a major pain situation. And if you're not reinforcing your body with my juice and you're just getting off of any kind of addiction, just cold turkey, you can kill yourself, right? So you need to realize that the juice is a major positive nutritional force that always has to be there whenever you are trying to wean off or fix your issues.
It's funny that we've talked about juicing before. And again, you have to give your body the enzymes that your body needs. And as we get older, our body doesn't produce it. So we have to, if anything, as we get older, we have to give our body back the protein.
Well, you don't give it. You let your body develop it.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So the bacteria, like you said, enzymes, that's right. Right. The probiotics, right? Yeah. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's I was just going to say that because we've had a few nutritionists on, and although we know about the serapeptase and CBD, and they will fix an immediate problem, it'll treat the symptom, but you have to look at the cause, and the cause, you have to kind of go back and say, well, your body this is why you're suffering from this because of X, Y, and Z, so you have to give your body the nutrients it needs to actually, so your body can deal with it if that comes up and happens again. I'm just watching the time, Jillian, and we've loads of questions that come in. So we'll quick fire them over to you, and we'll try and get them all over to you and get them answered. Steve.
Yeah. Okay. The very first question we have here is when you're replenishing the body with the electrolytes, etc., and the body gets rid of the other stuff, the bad stuff that it doesn't need in the waterfalls, as you say. I mean, would that be the likes of? Would it be strong enough? This like your juice to cleanse the body of the likes of, say, worms, tapeworms, and parasites, that sort of stuff?
Yes, absolutely. We've seen those. I've seen it myself, because the body is going to get rid of things that don't belong, and parasites do not belong, and neither does tapeworm and all of this. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
They can live in a very high pH in the body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Moon Girl on People's Internet Radio. Would apple cider vinegar not do the same trick as Jillian's potion?
No, it would not do the same trick because it's fermented fruit, and that is fermented sugar with actually acetic acid because it's vinegar. Acetic acid is fermented ethanol. Ethanol is a major negative force that would actually kill you over time.
Okay. Shane says, your guest just called cancer a virus. I thought it was classed as a chronic metabolic disorder, which is a disorder, not a virus. Can she please clarify?
Okay, so cancer, you have cancer, which is the yeast, right? Then you have a specific protein, a virus protein, that docks to it. So these receptors from this virus goes and connects itself. It docks to that yeast. Okay, that specific yeast, let's say it's a reproductive area yeast, right? And this cancer is an HPV cancer. So that's why they call HPV or cervical cancers based upon that virus driving it. So there's two separate proteins that have locked together and working symbiotically together to destroy you.
Okay, we don't want that. Dougie says, can we buy your product in the UK, or is it internet order only?
So you don't buy it. You make this yourself. Everything that I'm giving you guys is an opportunity to make this yourself.
Do you have do you have a video to show people how to do it, Jillian?
Well, jillyjuice.com will that's my website, okay? And I do it right now. It's membership only, which is like $30 a year. But once my second book, which is in the middle of being edited and published, once that comes out, that's going to be your ticket in. And that book is going to be about how to implement the protocol. It has also the recipe, but also like a shopping list for what you need to do to create this. But on jillyjuice.com, when you register, JILLYJUICE.com, you will put in your email address. We'll send you my first book, which gives you the foundation of where this came from. And it'll also have the recipe as well as the diet and what you could possibly be experiencing with healing. And that will give you something to work with. And then you'll wait for my second book. You'll buy that, and that will tell you how to implement it. And then my website has a discussion forum that you can ask questions. And there are also videos on my website for members only, because I have to make sure the advertising, that is up to my government code. So that's only for members only. But once the second book comes out, you can buy that, and that'll be your ticket in there.
Can I just make a suggestion, if it's all possible? When it comes to doing ingredients and stuff like that, it's not my forte. All right. For me, I learn by visuals. I learn by watching people do stuff. Right.
And this is why. Video on that.
Yeah, the video to say, A to B, beginner's guide, no assumptions, this is what you do, this is how you do it, and put it together, which is what I try and do when I do the videos that I do, is to try and break it down and explain everything, so there's no questions there to be asked because everything's been answered in the video.
Yes, there is a video that I've done, and I believe it's still, I believe it's still in my website, of how to make the juice. So, yeah, and then eventually, since this is still so new and I haven't had any books be released yet, so, of course, financially, I'm going to create a very high-level type of video in the future to where it does explain, like, from beginning to end in a nice environment where it's not like, a camera being put here from a phone, right? It'll be professionally done, and that will be definitely in the future. But right now there is like a Facebook Live video that I did put on the website, I believe, that people can look at, and then
Okay, we'll have to try and track that down. Steve, you got more questions there for Jimmy?
We do have more questions. Chris is wondering, is curcumin okay as an anti-inflammatory?
Yeah, no anti-inflammatories. Anything that's been labeled as anti-inflammatory, antibiotic, or a detox that they use in the holistic industry is a no-no, because all that does is just kills off all, it's a high negative force, just like highly alkaline water. Anything above a 7 pH is going to be used as a negative, and it's going to destroy the healing in your gut.
Okay, that's a fair point. The next question is, this is from information that is on the internet. Obviously, when someone comes out with a product or a protocol like yours, you're going to get some people on both sides of the camp offering ideas and obviously claims and all sorts of different things. We found one from Dr. Phil. And Dr. Phil says, when someone tells me far-fetched things like I could regrow a limb by drinking a juice and following a lifestyle protocol with absolutely no proof. I'm not going to buy into it, and I wouldn't want anyone else to buy into it either. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, here's the thing. Once you understand the concepts, the science, which I have that also for free for everybody, you will see that, it'll substantiate for you, because I've done the research on what bone spurs are. If you look up what bone spurs are, it's actually heterotrophic ossification. What that is new bone growth. That happens in the womb when babies are being, they're growing and their cartilage turns into actual mineralized bone. So in the amputee community, I've done the reverse reasoning of what they do to manage pain. And of course, they're using anti-inflammatories and antibiotics. And when you try to disappear pain, you disappear the actual cell regeneration, the healing process. So what they do in the amputee community is that when they see that a bone spur is being grown, well, it gets in the way of the business practice of fitting into that prosthesis. So what they do with adults is they cut off the bone spur, which is basically osteogenesis, osteoblasts. Those are new bone cells. That's basically new bones being regrown, and then eventually the rest of the limb is going to be regrown.
Okay. Do you have anybody that, do you have photos of any of this so we can show people and go, well, this is before, this is after?
Yeah, but how would you know where it came from? You have no idea. Even if I did, this is still so new. This has only been around for a year and a half, right? So, yeah, there's no way. So the thing is, you have to look at conceptually what the medical community has done to keep us alive for this long, and then see through, right? Open your mind, see through some of the language they're using, especially in the amputee community websites, when they talk about bone spurs. And they talk about they don't allow anybody to cut off any bone spurs for a child until they're older, because they stop growing at around 17 or 18. And that's when they cut off the bone spurs to then fit them with the prosthesis. So they know when a child goes through this development, it's going to be creating more, it's going to be regenerating and growing bones.
Okay. Well,
we're growing, limbs.
Yeah, we had Dr. Lorraine Day on the show, and she said, doctors are only good for two things: writing prescriptions and taking body parts off you. And she was a medical doctor, like she's a trained doctor. So, but yeah, I see what you mean. It'd be interesting to see that as an experiment. More happy to open our mind, obviously, and get feedback. As I say, that we got your information from a listener who has tried your juice, and she said that has been very beneficial for her taking the juice. So it's down to the proof, really. It's down for people to maybe try it, check it out, and see if it works. Steve?
Well, as we did say jokingly earlier, but maybe in a kind of a more serious way, if both Alan and I are, we'll say follically challenged, and if it was a case of trying the juice and it worked for us, well, okay, we'd kind of give it a thumbs up. But like when you hear the likes of Dr. Phil, now I've seen Dr. Phil. I wouldn't watch him on a regular basis or anything like that. But I always kind of thought him to be fairly kind of open-minded. But when he said, when you kind of make claims as to regrow a limb, I know. We have heard from various different people that there are technologies out there, kind of, for want of a better word, extraterrestrial, futuristic technologies that can regrow limbs. And from what you're saying, maybe not so much limbs, but okay, think of it, maybe even a smaller scale, teeth. People who've lost teeth, we're saying that they could grow back teeth as well, a full mouthful of choppers.
Yeah, even nails. Growing back, toenails, thumbnails.
Yeah.
And then, let's say, okay, look at this. When you get an operation, right, and you have your whole, your bones and everything splayed open because you have to have open heart surgery and your skin's getting cut. Well, guess what? Your skins are cells. They're healing and regenerating, right? And then they're also using stem cells to regrow organs, right? But you can grow your own stem cells. You don't have to use somebody else's stem cells, which is another programmed cell that has a specific lifespan, because that person, everybody in the matrix, is on a death trajectory. So what I'm actually introducing is a life trajectory. It's upsetting homeostasis to now go into a life trajectory, which means that, you have now every opportunity to regrow and regenerate everything based upon your innate immune system, the actual design of the human body. which is the 11 different systems.
Okay, now the important thing for me anyway, how does it taste?
In the beginning, it's going to be awful because your parasites and your fungus are going to say, no, we don't want to die. So you're going to now have to intellectualize and conceptualize why you're drinking this, because that's what's going to get you through.
Yeah, I have a very sensitive palate.
Yeah, so basically what's going to happen, Jillian, is I'll try it, I'll get a full head of hair, and Alan won't, because we tried some juicing before, and we both juice on a regular basis. We have the slow masticating juicers, and we juice cabbage and kale. And
it's not even juicing. It's not even juicing. What you're doing is you're actually going to be cutting up stuff, and you're going to be fermenting. So I don't want you to masticate it. I don't want you to try to take all the juice out of it and ferment it that way. I want to take the whole leaves, cut them up, and then put the salt and the water, put them in the blender, puree it, and then pour it. And you'll have 50% cabbage, or maybe 25% cabbage, and then 50 or 75% water and salt. Okay? And then here's the thing. You're going in with an intention of your hair, but guess what? The unintended benefits are going to be astronomical, as well as the healing. So you're going to be waking your system up, and you can't determine what it's going to, decide to heal first.
I'll give it a go. Can we use spring water?
Yeah, you can use spring water.
Okay,
just not highly alkaline, or not. Tap water, you leave it out for 24 hours unless there's like some other kind of chemical like.
Oh no, tap water over here. We have fluoride over here in the water. You don't want to be doing that. No, we'll use spring water over here. But I will give it a go. I will definitely. We have a blender, and cabbage and kale. So is it 50-50 or 75-25?
Well, it's not. See, here's the thing. You're going to do it, and then you're going to have to play with it. So do the 50-50, and then then you can get to a point when you do the 24-hour ferment, which is using your 3-day ferment as a seed to then, or use a 3-day ferment to make a 24-hour ferment, and it'll seed it, and so that way it only ferments in 24 hours. Then you can play with it and not put so much cabbage, because at first you're probably going to put too much cabbage, because your mind is going to naturally try to do more cabbage than not, and it'll be more sauerkraut. So then you'll learn how to play with it. You'll do less on the cabbage, more water and salt, and then you'll have a nice, juicy drink versus trying to drink all that, cabbage that's
wow,
fibrous, right?
Okay,
but
no, I just like to make sure that we do it right, because we don't want to get, when you try it and you think this is not right, we're not doing it right, and we just kind of go, okay, and we're going to leave it, we're not going to do it anymore. I just like to make sure we get the ingredients and the measurements right, so we're near the mark. Yeah,
as long as you're having 2 cups of water and 1 tablespoon of pink Himalayan salt, that's the only salt, and then you can't mess up. You can play with the cabbage and kale. Okay, you can't mess up.
Okay, so
there's no way to mess up.
So a cup of cabbage, a cup of kale, two cups of water. Put them all in to a blender with the tablespoonful of Himalayan salt. Mix it all together, and then take it out of the blender. Put it into a container and leave it there for 2 days.
No, it's 3 days.
3 days.
Between 65 and 72 degrees. Now here's the thing, since this is your first one, you can do like just the 2 cups of but if you get like a gallon jar, you'll repeat the process. Now you can do just kale, or you can do just cabbage, or you can mix the two. As long as there's 2 cups of both of the vegetables, either together or separate, you can then taste what it's like with only just cabbage or only kale, or you can mix the two if you don't like the taste of cabbage or the kale by itself.
Fantastic. Well, I'll be back in a few weeks' time with a big head of hair. Fantastic.
Oh my God, no, don't. Because here's the thing, you might have other issues being addressed. So actually, you'll go in with that intention, but I'll tell you what, you may, I don't know if you're overweight or anything, but you may see weight drop off. But then you may see things come to surface. Like, let's say you have shingles in your body, but it's not coming to surface yet because the conditions haven't triggered it. You may see some stuff come to surface on your skin.
Brilliant. Well, as long as it's my weight that drops off and nothing else, I don't mind at all. Right. We have one more question, and we're going to have to wrap it up because we have another guest to get on, but that's brilliant information. Do you want to ask that, Jamie?
Yes, final question from the People's Internet Radio chat. Colloidal silver. What's your thoughts on drinking colloidal silver, Jillian?
It is antibiotic, anti-life. It will destroy your gut. because it's a heavy metal that your body needs trace minerals of, but you're using it as if it was oxygen or water, and that should not even be at all. It shouldn't even be used. So no colloidal silver.
Okay, that's interesting. Right, Jillian, well listen, that information was fantastic, and I do think that we will have to do a part 2, because there's more things that we can get into, and maybe down the line, in between the next time you come on, we will try the cabbage, the juice, and we'll see how we get on, and then we can report back on the show as to let people know how things are doing, whether I have a head of hair and my teeth are back in, you know.
Alan's afro.
Right, and I look very slim. Okay, Jillian.
Well, you take back into something else, who knows?
I'll be looking for a 25-year-old model then after that. Okay.
I can see you in a few weeks' time. We'll be halfway through a show and Alan will have to disappear because of the waterfalls.
I hope you strategically place this protocol in your life, you know.
And have to buy one of them chairs that has the built-in toilet. Okay, Jillian, thanks a lot for coming on. I'm going to pass you off to Steve. Steve's going to get all your contact information for people to find out more about you. Steve.
Yeah, Jillian, great information. As Alan said, it was a very short interview. We will have to do a longer one. But in the meantime, we do have the link to the website there, jillyjuice.com, that you gave us out earlier. We have posted that up on the chat rooms for everyone to see and go and check out. And we do urge people to go and have a look and view the information with an open mind and see what you think. Are there any other links that you want to throw out there before we let you go?
No, that's the only thing. I mean, there's my Facebook page, which, you know, people will find, but I guess, do you want that? I guess I could give you that. Or I could send that to you.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to send that to us, then we can make people aware of that. We can stick it up on the page, because we do upload the podcasts to the website there with a short little description of what the interview is about, so we can pop that link in there as well.
Okay.
Brilliant stuff. Sure. All right, Jillian, thanks a lot for coming on. We're just going to pop off to a musical break. Just stay with us there for a minute, and we'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com and peoplesinternetradio.com.
Okay, we're back, and he has a bad case of loving you. Must have been after the waterfalls, I don't know. Good information there. As we say, view everything on OYM Radio with a little bit of discernment and an open mind. Do check out Jillian's website, jillyjuice.com, and make up your own minds, you know. As I say, there's no sense in reading some of the online stuff like what, say, Dr. Phil has said and taking that as verbatim. You know, do your own research. You've got to have an open mind.
Brilliant stuff, Steve. Right, our next guest is a chap called Kevin Hendrick, and Kevin actually gave me a free hearing test. It's something that Kevin does. And the good news is that my hearing is near enough okay. Okay, age relevant deafness, obviously, because I'm a little bit older, and 20 plus years of rock music doesn't help. But generally, my hearing was okay. But I think it's very important that we do get our hearing tested, because some of the things that we do here are just unbelievable. So it's always good to get the hearing tested. So before we bring Kevin on, I'll let Steve give you some background information on Kevin.
Yeah, and some background information on Alan as well. That's 20 years of playing rock music, by the way, not listening to it. Anyway, Kevin, at HearAll Hearing, we strive to bring awareness of hearing loss and of available treatments to our local community through talks with local groups such as Men's Sheds and Active Retirement, to name but a couple. Perhaps one of the reasons that we tend to ignore hearing loss is due in part to the gradual nature of the decline in hearing for most of us. A hearing loss in Ireland affects 1 in 6 adults and increases to 1 in 4 adults over the age of 55. Degenerative or age-related hearing loss can start from an age of about 40 years onwards, and it happens at a snail's pace for most. Coupled with modern life's noise pollution and side effects of some modern medicines, this hearing loss is starting to affect more and more people at even younger ages. Thankfully, there are many remedies out there to help with hearing loss, from over-the-counter eardrops or nasal sprays, earwax removal, and even small discreet hearing aids.
Brilliant. Hello, Kevin. How are you doing? Good evening.
Alan, Stephen, how are you guys? Good evening to you.
How are you doing? Listen, thanks a lot for coming on. This is very important with the hearing, because society has changed, and we have all the young people now. I mean, in the 80s, I know we had our little tape decks and stuff like that. I suppose that was the start of it. But now what's happening is obviously rock concerts and people having MP3 players and everything else. And you hear them when you're on a train or on a tube, and you can hear the music coming out of the headphones, and it's just annoying and irritating. What's the situation with hearing loss? What are you seeing on a day-to-day basis? Over the years, have you noticed a big difference?
Well, yeah, first of all, I'll say back in the 80s we had rock concerts then as well, Alan. They're not just a new phenomenon. Rock concerts have been around a long, long time, as we all know. But to go back to the earphones and the Walkman and things, I suppose I always remember when the Sony Walkman first came out, and you could turn the volume up as high as you possibly could, and your little cassette tape was playing along. And the earphones back then, you know, when you got to a certain level, they would crackle, they would warble, and the sound was really bad, and you had to wind it back a little bit just so you could hear the tape clearly. And it was at a level, I suppose, that wasn't really causing any damage to our hearing. And that was always the case until, I suppose, the new digital age came along. And with digital, I mean, you can have 120 decibels of absolute pure brilliant sound coming through two small speakers embedded into your ears. And as a result of this, we're finding now in the audiology world that an awful lot more people are suffering with hearing issues, and this volume, this massive volume of absolutely brilliant sound is one of the problems. So I suppose a rule of thumb, you mentioned the tube, you mentioned the bus, you mentioned the train. A rule of thumb is always, if someone else can hear the music that's coming from your earphones, well then it's actually at a level that it's currently causing you hearing damage. Not that it will or might, but it's currently causing you hearing damage. So yeah, it's one of the many, I suppose, downsides with modern music, although there's many good sides with modern music and music systems, but this is one of the downsides that we're seeing.
And have you seen any young people, have you been dealing with young people at a young age having a hearing loss?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a strange thing. I suppose for years, an awful lot of people have associated hearing and hearing loss, as you mentioned there, Stephen mentioned in the bio, with age-related issues. One of the things we're certainly finding at HearAll Hearing is that we're treating younger and younger people. So we're regularly treating people, you know, as young as their early to mid 20s with hearing issues, hearing loss. And it's not so much that that's a new thing, but what is new about that is that we're treating more and more of them.
Okay, well that's interesting. Obviously that's down to the technology and what's going on. And it's quite worrying because you do see that on buses and trains and everything else with the volume turned up. Now, I know there's a misconception, and I suppose I suffer from this as well, that when you hear about hearing aids, you're thinking of these big, bulky things that are in your ear that everybody will see. You can see for miles around. But apparently, the technology... miles around! Big hearing aids.
What, like the big ear horns they used to use in the 1800s?
Yeah. But apparently, I have seen the latest hearing aids, and literally they're very, very small. And you wouldn't really see them. Do you want to kind of give us some information on them?
Well, I suppose, you know, the history of hearing aids as such, I mean, one of the first hearing aids was when we cupped our hand behind our ear to sort of catch more sound and let that sound, you know, funnel down our ear canals. And that was as big as your hand is. Back with the Indians, believe it or not, over in the United States, when trains were coming along the line, and you know the Indians would put their ear down, and what they were actually doing to hear the vibration of the train coming was there was a metal. A lot of Indians, you know, would wear decorative pieces, and the metals in their ears, they would feel the vibration and hear the vibration through that. So that was another type of hearing aid. And again, as Stephen says, yeah, we had the big horn that you saw in Hello, and that was another type of hearing aid. And the progression of hearing aids throughout the years has always been to try and get the most power and most sound with the smallest possible battery, and obviously the history and progression of batteries, which is probably something that I'm sure you guys have covered many times, but they're obviously an awful lot smaller now than what they used to be, which allows, I suppose, the people in the hearing industry to make smaller and smaller hearing aids. So, I mean, if I think back to myself when I was growing up, both of my parents are completely deaf. And when I was growing up, they used to have what I used to call a whistle box, which was essentially a box the size of maybe a packet of cigarettes, which would sit in their breast pocket with a big wire coming off it and a big, huge mold which used to sit in their ear. And I don't know, it used to whistle and feedback more than I think it helped them with their hearing. But then, obviously, as things progressed and as times progress, the actual advent of the hearing aid in the digital world has allowed us to do things much, much smaller. So a little tiny microchip, which can essentially take in from a microphone, take in sound, change it down through an amplifier and push it back out through a tiny speaker again. Now, what you're talking about, the big old ugly hearing aids, as you described them, that could be seen from miles and miles around, again, we'll debate that another day. But yeah, look, certainly, historically hearing aids have not been exactly pleasing to the eye, okay? They've been there, they've been functional, and that's about it. But I suppose, over the last maybe, 25, 30 years, as the digital age really came upon us in terms of the hearing aids thankfully have become an awful lot smaller and an awful lot more discreet, but still able to supply and deliver the power that is required when required. And I suppose one of the more important advances in the digital world of hearing aids is that it's not only we can just deliver the power, sometimes we don't need to deliver power. Sometimes we just need to deliver something a little bit more subtle, which is a little bit of high frequency sound, which is more clarity. And being able to deliver some clarity without giving a lot of volume is a wonderful, wonderful thing. If you think of somebody who struggles with their hearing and is sitting in a cafe with a bit of background noise, the last thing they want is that background noise amplified. All they want is that little bit of clarity from the voice of the person that they're having a chat with across the table. So although they've got smaller and smaller, yeah, we can certainly still give all that power, but we can give the clarity. And I suppose even now, what we used to call the James Bond hearing aids, which had the little tiny earpiece, even that little tiny earpiece that sits inside your ear canal that just is not visible no matter how hard you look, that's still giving a huge, huge punch of power and clarity and, I suppose, processing power as well. And then the other side of that then as well, I suppose, in the last sort of 5, 6, 7 years, wearables or hearing wearables as they're called, which isn't necessarily hearing aids in the traditional sense. I suppose, mobile phones, Bluetooth speakers, all of these different things that we're seeing people wearing all the time in their ears actually make hearing aids, I suppose, more palatable for people to wear and to see. And it's not so much of an eyesore anymore. So people are actually, believe it or not, Alan, going back to slightly bigger hearing aids because they just give a little bit more functionality and people are less worried about how they look, believe it or not.
Well, I think, when they originally designed them, it's all about functionality and you weren't looking at the cosmetic side. But now I think people are more interested in having the functionality and the cosmetic look. But as you say, society has changed. People using big headphones now, where years ago we had small headphones. People don't mind going around with these big headphones. So the stigma is not there anymore because I suppose some people felt that having big hearing aids didn't look nice and there's a bit of a stigma with it, but probably this day and age with society it's changed a little. Now you do say here that, which is of interest, that side effects of some modern medicines can affect your hearing. What have you come across with that?
Yeah, I suppose, more and more studies are being done into, well, I suppose all areas of medicine and health. But when it comes to hearing, one of the things that we've realised now is, I suppose to give it to you, basically, the cochlea, which is embedded in the back of the skull, is the organ of hearing. And each cochlea, one in either ear, each cochlea is about the size of a garden pea. And within that little garden pea, Alan, there's about 20,000 little tiny hairs or nerve endings, cilia. And basically each one of these little hairs or nerve endings, I say just 20,000 odd of them, they collect a different frequency of sound, and they send that particular frequency up to the brain, which is obviously what we hear as sound. Now, in order to live and survive, these little hairs need a number of things, but among these things, they need a very rich supply of red blood cells. And what we've discovered over time is that with the lack of quality red blood cells getting to the cochlea, these little hairs tend to wither away and die. Now, some of the things that can cause that, I suppose, the biggest culprit that we know of is aspirin, believe it or not. Aspirin is used, as you know, for basic pain relief. It's also used as a blood thinner. And people who suffer with the likes of blood pressure issues or something along those lines may well be prescribed, a small dose of aspirin to take on a daily basis. And even though it's only a very small dose of aspirin, the fact that it's taken on a regular basis over a number of years actually starts to affect the quality of the blood cells which go to the cochlea and in turn affect those little tiny hairs or cilia which pick up those different frequencies of sound. Now, it's also known that if you were to take a large amount of aspirin over a very short period of time, we have the very same effects. But I suppose what we didn't really understand, because it was such a long-term study, we're talking 25, 30-year study to figure this stuff out, was that over that length of time, it didn't take an absolute huge amount of aspirin to cause this hearing loss. It took a very minor amount, which an awful lot of people take, and they take it in forms of warfarin and other things like that as well. And there are other medicines as well that fall into that category. I think one of the studies that was done, I'm just trying to think of it off the top of my head now, but there was 60,000 women who were studied over a 14-year period, and just the name of the group that carried out the study just evades me at the moment, but I will come back to you on that one again. But as I say, over 60,000 women who were part of this study over a 14-year period, they found that 10,000 of them developed hearing loss, and the only remarkable thing that they could say about it was that the people that suffered the hearing loss were the ones that had the most amount of aspirin.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you something about the aspirin. We had a guest on called Gordon James Gananotto, and Gordon got prescribed aspirin for whatever symptom he had, maybe thinning of the blood, and he started losing his eyesight, and his eyesight is so bad now, he said to us that had he known that the aspirin would have affected his eyesight, he would have stopped it completely, he wouldn't have taken it. So I think, although it, on one side, you hear about aspirin thinning the blood is good for you, on the other side, obviously it has effects, not only on eyesight, but obviously your hearing as well. So,
but then again,
absolutely.
but there's people as well, let's say for argument's sake, who are on warfarin, like my father's on warfarin, and I know people who take the aspirin as well, and if they stop taking it, then they run. They're told by the GP, then they run risks of
absolutely.
clots,
look, no one at HearAll Hearing is advocating that you stop any prescribed medicines or anything at all that your GP or doctors or whatever say to you. We're not advocating that whatsoever. But what we are advocating is that you go back to your GP and you question them as to the alternatives that may be available for you.
Yeah.
And is the aspirin, warfarin, etc., is that necessarily the best course for you? And also, if you are on that your GP should actually, before they prescribe it, or maybe now a GP listening might say, gosh, I've got patients out there, I need to talk to them about this. We would absolutely advocate and recommend that these particular individuals, patients, would get their hearing checked at least every 12 months. Not so we can say, gosh, look, your hearing's down, you need to get hearing aids, but so we can say, look, there's your baseline hearing. That's what it is. It's down a little bit. Maybe you're just as bad as Alan, just down a little bit after 20 years of rock music or 20 years of warfarin. But at least we know where it is now. Let's check it every 12 months. And if there is any real decline or significant decline over the next 12, 24, 36 months, well, at least we can do something about it and we know about it. And look, it's the same as anything in medicine, I think. Early intervention nearly always leads to a better long-term outcome.
Well, that's it. And tell me something about your hearing tests. Should people be paying for these, or should they be free?
Look, you can pay up to 180, certainly in the Republic of Ireland, you can pay up to 180, 200 euros for a hearing test. But essentially, there's no difference between that hearing test and a free hearing test. So most companies in Ireland will offer a free hearing test. There are some that charge, and they claim that by charging, it means that their hearing evaluation is of more value in some way. It's not. A hearing evaluation consists of a number of different elements. We would do a whole gamut of testing. So you can do word testing to see how speech perception is. You can do tuning fork testing, which is one of the oldest hearing tests in the world, but it's still absolutely relevant today. We have pure tone testing, which basically is a pure tone on a calibrated audiometer, which sends a signal at a particular frequency, which we control, and a particular volume which we control, and that also gives us a determined audiogram and output. So, look, there are a number of different ways that you can test hearing. None of them are, necessarily going to give you a better outcome than the other. So long as the pure tone testing is done, everything else is just sort of to back up and confirm the pure tone testing. And look, some of the better companies will do a lot of testing, a lot of different testing, and it does give them a better all-round picture and a better background picture on someone's overall hearing health. But essentially, once the pure tone testing, known as PTA, once that is conducted, that is what we would call an official hearing test. That actual part of the hearing test only takes about 7 or 8 minutes, even though we would normally have a hearing test booked in for an hour to an hour and a half, because there's so much more involved than just pure tone testing, which is clinical testing. When we're testing people, we're trying to help change their lifestyle and help them for the better and look at all their overall hearing health. So, look, would you get a better result if you paid for a hearing test? I don't see how, because pure tone testing is clinical. It's audiological hearing testing, and I don't see how you could possibly get a better result or more accurate result by paying for it. It's all the one, to be very honest.
Yeah, no, I will say that when you did, obviously, Kevin had tested my hearing, and you came to my house, and it was great. You had all the equipment there. The one thing I was conscious of was I wanted to look away from you when you were pressing the buttons, because subconsciously somewhere I'd be initially when I was just looking at you, and you were saying, can you hear that? Can you hear that? Can you hear that? And I suppose it's somewhere automatic to kind of go, yeah, I hear that, you hear that. And I felt it better when I actually looked away from you and I could focus on whether I could hear the sound or not. Now, I know you said to me that there are people out there who'll be convinced that their hearing is perfect. And so you have a little kind of method that you employ when you do the hearing test, just to kind of sort that out.
Yeah, well, we sort of basically, I suppose, is what you call a double bluff, really. So you're playing tones at a nice audible level, which you would expect even people with a hearing loss are certainly going to pick it up. And then as you reduce that level down more and more and more to an area where it's going to be barely audible, what you do then is you can double bluff. So you say, have you heard that tone? Even though you haven't presented the tone. And at this stage, if the patient says that they do hear that tone, then there's one of two things. One is they're trying to bluff their way through the hearing test, or two, which is a real phenomenon, I suppose, which is the brain plays a trick. Because you've seen the finger being pressed, your brain automatically says, well, you must have heard a sound, therefore you believe you've heard a sound. So we double bluff on that. But then also what we do is, if we drop down a pure tone to a level where, let's say, the patient cannot hear it anymore, we then go back up a step. And if the patient can hear it at that level again, we go back down 2 steps. And if the patient can't hear it, which he shouldn't hear it, then we go back up another step, still shouldn't hear it, and go back up 1 more step, and the patient should hear it again. So therefore, we've got 2, if you like, positive results, or 2 positive pure tone testing results from out of 3 tones that were presented. So long as we get 2 out of 3, then at least we know that that's a pretty accurate result.
I think it's important for you to do that on a serious note, because we all know people who are convinced that their hearing is perfect. I have a relative who will tell you that her hearing is perfect, and when you talk to her and she says, what? And you say it again, and I said, did you not hear that? And she'll say, oh, no, you're talking quietly. And I go, no, you're deaf. But she won't accept
A lovely bedside manner. You should have been a doctor.
I should have been a doctor.
Well, look, there's very, very few people I've met in my life and my career that are deaf. So deaf is not a word that we use or use lightly. If you're deaf, believe you, she will know she's deaf if she's deaf, because she will not be, sitting in a room trying to talk to you and listen to you. She will already have gone and got a cochlear implant or done something over in Beaumont Hospital in Dublin or something like that. Look, the term deaf is clinically, it means you hear very little. My parents are both deaf, I should say, are both deaf, both still alive, thank God, both deaf. I mean, when I grew up, it could be lashing rain outside, and I remember, and I have big memories of it, banging down the hall door. My mum and dad 4 foot inside the door, and I'm banging and banging in the lashings of rain because they have their back to the door. They can't hear nor see me. So I'm standing there in the lashings of rain, even though my parents are just 4 or 5 foot inside the hall door. They could stand beside a jumbo jet and they wouldn't hear it. Now, granted, they will feel the vibration of the jumbo jet, but they wouldn't hear it. And they've gone for cochlear implants, which has given them back partial hearing. But again, that's another area, another expertise. I'm a hearing aid audiologist, and that's something cochlear implants is something for surgeons, and it's a totally different area. But to get back to the term deaf, no, it's not something that we use lightly. However, she probably, this person that you're speaking of, and if it's the person that you spoke to me about before, and I think we've mentioned it, I think she probably has certain frequencies of sound that she struggles to hear. So therefore, a lot of people, for example, that we treat with hearing loss would have what we call a high frequency hearing loss. And high frequency hearing loss is actually one of the most, what would you call it? One of it's a really frustrating type of hearing loss for the individual who suffers from it. And I use the word suffers, and I don't use it lightly, because it's something that you really do suffer from. High frequency hearing loss means that your low frequency hearing is very, very good, and your high frequency hearing is very, very poor. So to translate that into layman's terms, low frequency hearing is responsible for volume, and high frequency hearing is responsible for clarity. So if we bring that back to speech, low frequency hearing is responsible for our vowel sounds. Our vowel sounds are ooh, all these low frequency sounds. Our high frequency sounds are our consonant sounds. So our sounds such as fa, sa, ka, pa, these lighter sounds, if you like. So someone who's suffering a high frequency hearing loss genuinely may believe that their hearing is absolutely fine, because when their low frequency hearing is very, very good, they will hear sounds, for example, Alan, that you may not hear. Could be a dog barking, it could be a bus going by in the distance, a tractor over the hills, and they'll say, God, Alan, do you not hear that? And genuinely, you might not hear that, but they will. So therefore, in their mind, they're saying to themselves, gosh, my hearing's actually quite good. I'm very happy with my level of hearing. However, then when it comes to the high frequency side of their hearing, that might be down. So while you, for example, might be talking to this individual in a room where there might be maybe a radio on or television in the background, or maybe kids having a chat in the corner, this individual will hear your voice, not a problem, but will miss parts of your speech, the high frequency parts of your speech. As I said, the th, sa, ka, huh. So that translates to that individual as, yes, I hear Alan's voice, but I just can't make it out. There's no clarity in what he's saying. So the high frequency hearing loss is a lack of clarity, not necessarily a lack of sound or volume. And because of the frequencies and pitches of high frequency hearing and background noise, what tends to happen is the background noise and the high frequency parts of speech tend to mingle together. And because someone has a hearing deficit, they actually don't realize, but they can't separate those sounds the way they would have maybe when they were, 18, 19, 20, 21 years of age. But certainly as we get older, as our hearing loss becomes worse, it's a lot more difficult. If you have a high frequency hearing loss, of course, it's a lot more difficult to separate these sounds. So an individual like the person that you're describing may very well believe that their hearing is absolutely spot on, because, as I say, they hear some sounds better than others, and may not realize that that lack of clarity is because of a high frequency hearing loss, not because the television is bad, not because kids these days speak much faster than they used to, not because the background noise, not because the acoustics, because of a high frequency hearing loss.
Okay.
So if you know of anyone, and I'm not speaking about this particular individual, but if we or anyone listening knows of anyone that sort of tends to blame others or blame acoustics or whatever it might be on not hearing correctly, then it's just an indication. It's not a God-given sign for sure, but it's an indication that there may be some type of hearing loss, and it's certainly worth getting your hearing checked.
Okay.
It could be just something as simple as a wax block, Alan, you know?
It could be. Well, I jest when I say deaf, because when I say, is that your tenor on the floor, she's razor sharp. Right, I'm going to pass you over to Steve. Steve has a few questions for you.
How are you, Stephen?
Oh, I'm okay. I'm worried about my hearing now. But we have we have some questions. Can hearing aids be recycled?
Yes and no. Yes, they can be. They can be recycled. They can be reprogrammed, but it's not recommended because as a medical product, they're not really supposed to go from one ear to another because they can carry infection. They can carry other bits and pieces like that. There are replaceable parts on them. The replaceable parts are usually, now this is, by the way, I'm talking about an over-the-ear hearing aid. The replaceable parts are normally a little speaker that sticks into the ear. That can be replaced and a brand new one put on. Therefore, you mitigate the whole infection problem. The longevity of the hearing aids may be an issue because obviously if a hearing aid is straight from the manufacturer, it's going to have a warranty on it. And if you recycle them from that point of view, they will probably lose that warranty as well. The other thing then is if they're a custom fit hearing aid, obviously they cannot be recycled because a custom fit means that it's made for the individual's ear. And they're custom fit to each individual ear. So those ones that we call in the ear or in the canal, which go into your ear only, then no, they can't really be recycled. But yeah, look, the ones that sit over your ear, manufacturers won't really thank me for saying it, but yeah, look, they can be recycled for a small fee, and the small fee is usually just replacing the speaker or receiver that goes into your ear, purely for reasons of infection control, etc.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair enough. Dougie wants to know, cotton buds, good or bad? And this brings me to something that I heard a long, long time ago. A wise woman said to me, I used to work in a hospital in a previous life, and a woman said to me before, the only thing you should be sticking into your ear, she said, is your elbow.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. And it's a little bugbear of mine. These cotton buds, they should either be banned or barred or something. Look, cotton buds have a purpose, right? And the purpose of these cotton buds or Q-tips, as they're more commonly known, is I suppose for a parent to clean around the outside of a child's ear.
Yes.
Not to go into the ear canal, but just to clean around the outside, all those little ridges on the ear, just to clean all through all them and then bin it. That's it. Now, if you or I are to use the cotton buds ourselves, first of all, obviously we cannot see into our own ear canal. So we may be getting out a bit of wax, we may be pushing something in, but we can't see, so we don't know. But what I've found over the years, what I've found over the years, one of the things that we do in the HearAll Hearing is earwax removal by microsuction. And one of the things I found over the years is that using the cotton buds to try and take out some earwax, what we tend to do is, yes, we get out a little bit of earwax, but we oftentimes push in a little bit as well. And it doesn't have to be a huge amount. We get out a little, we push in a little, we get out a little, we push in a little. And over time, what happens with that little bit that's going into the ear further and further is it tends to become very tight and compact. So then when new wax is forming behind that wax, it has nowhere to go because it can't get out. And it actually tends to work its way back towards the eardrum. And oftentimes you might hear of people who say that they feel like their ears are blocked, but they might say that they feel like they have a pressure coming from their ears down towards their neck. And that pressure from the ear down towards the neck is usually a sign that the earwax is building back towards the eardrum, which can cause its own problems. Earwax is a very important thing for the health of our ears. So earwax has a couple of functions. One is that it actually, normally it makes its own way out of the ear canal, okay? And what it does is it stops foreign objects, debris, dust, dirt, mites, whatever, getting into the ear and down onto the ear canal and causing infection on the ear canal, because the ear canal is, I suppose, the ear canal is about the width of a sheet of paper, but there's actually 3 little sheets within that little sheet of paper, if that makes sense, within the width of it. And if that becomes damaged, it can cause irreparable damage to our hearing overall and massive acute infections, and an awful lot of hassle and pain. So the earwax is actually, it's got a very important function for keeping the ear clean. Also, it coats the ear canal with an antiseptic, and that antiseptic obviously again helps keep the ear clean and stops any infection. So although it's unsightly and no one really wants to know an awful lot about it, in fairness, that earwax is very, very important, and it has an absolute real function, keeping the ear healthy and clean. So it's important that the earwax makes its own way out of the ear canal. The problems occur like that when people use the cotton bud, Stephen, and they sort of tend to cause more problems by pushing wax further down. On the rare occasion that I've seen cotton buds have broken off, tips have broken off, or they've caused slight maybe cuts onto the inside of the ear canal, and they don't have to be large cuts, but small cuts, which again can cause infections and lots of different problems. The best thing, I suppose, for your ears is something as simple as olive oil. Now, you know, olive oil comes in many, many forms. You can get it in most people have it in their kitchen in some form or another, but most chemists as well will sell a little tub of it, and you don't necessarily need the droppers. That they do sell them with a little spray, and you can spray that into your ear canals once a week. And what it does then, Stephen, is it helps keep the ear canal moist and lubricated, so any wax that's in there can actually make its own way out an awful lot easier. And it also softens up any wax that's in there as well, and just makes that job of the wax coming out that bit easier as well. And, you know, as far as I'm aware anyway, there are no side effects with olive oil, and, you know, it's only good for your skin. So I would actually advocate and recommend that everybody would use, you know, one spray of olive oil into both ears at least once a week, just to help the earwax come out by itself. Yeah,
great. That's some good advice there. Or I suppose if you have the can of WD-40 with the with the extension. No.
Let me just distance myself from that.
No, that's a joke. Please do not try that at home. We also heard as well, Kevin, that well, I seen this online. I was checking out some information, and they're saying that different colour earwax can tell you different things about what's going on in your body. Is that correct?
Yeah, very, very dark earwax basically just means that there is more chance that there's infection going on in your body, believe it or not. So your body obviously has natural responses to infection overall, and dark earwax tends to show us that there is some sort of internal infection going on. And actually we'll find that a lot more earwax is produced when the body knows that it has an infection and it's trying to fight it in some way. So yeah, again, it can help. And as well, if you have a very watery earwax coming out, not necessarily colour, but certainly watery earwax coming out, or very, very moist, it's an indication that there's actually infection going on within the ear canal itself, and certainly it's something that you should bring to your GP if you feel that you have a very moist or watery ear as well.
Now, obviously, if someone has just got out of a shower, then, I mean, and something, a little bit of moisture, that's obviously just from the shower.
No, that's normal enough. That's normal enough. But certainly if you have a watery ear as such, or a lot of wet wax coming out, it'll be something that'll happen over the course of 12, 24 hours, and you will notice it, you know, that way.
Kevin, I actually sent you, I just posted a link to you there on Skype. I don't know if you can access that image. And I posted it on the chat rooms as well. Just want to get your thoughts on these, new fandangled things for removing earwax. I think they're called Smart Swab. It's like a screw shaped thing, a little rubber screw that I think it's a one-time use only. You just I think you put it into your ear and you turn it.
Yeah, I can see it there. I can see it there. Yeah. And what do you think I'm going to say?
Honestly, I don't know, and I'll tell you why. Because I've actually watched, because you know these things are advertised on shopping channels. I actually watched it, and there was a chap on there, and he claimed to be a specialist on this sort of thing, and he said, no, you shouldn't be putting cotton buds, but these things are 100% perfectly safe.
They may be safe in terms that they're not going to cut the inside of your ear or anything like that. But again, if you cannot see what you're doing down your ear canal, and I can see the picture of it here now, and it shows a kind of a cutaway that it's sort of a screw tip, and it's you know, as you would imagine, a corkscrew is kind of gathering as it screws down in. But again, if there was more wax at the end of that picture, which they don't show, what they're showing there is wax that was from the final third of the canal out to the ear, if you like.
Yeah.
But if there was wax the opposite side to that, down into the eardrum, what you would actually be in effect doing there is pushing that wax on the tip into the eardrum, which I would definitely say is a no-no. Look, absolutely, I'm not here to poo-poo anyone else's products or anything like that, but just based on what I'm looking at there, I would see certainly if there was wax in on the eardrum, that this is going to cause a problem. This is going to actually, the tip of this corkscrew, if you like, I say corkscrew, it's not that sharp, but it's a helix. The tip of this helix, if there's wax on the eardrum, it's going to push that wax on the eardrum, which is going to cause acute pain. And I wouldn't recommend it. And again, it's like what your friend in the hospital said, like what my mother said. Never put anything bigger than your elbow in your ear, or smaller than your elbow in your ear. Again, just looking at that as I'm talking to you, I can see how the helix is going to sort of catch some of the wax around the first third of the ear canal, but the final third of the ear canal, and where we see a lot of the problems when it comes to earwax and, pain and pressure from a buildup of wax, which is come back as far as the eardrum, that tip, and I know it's hard to explain it on radio, pictures are no good on radio, I believe, but that tip, if it's touching off wax that's touching off the eardrum, is going to cause a lot of pain, because anyone that's suffered with a perforated ear, or anyone that's had something put into their ear that's even, mildly touched off their eardrum, it's a massive pain. I've had it happen to me before, not the perforation, but when we were in training a few years ago in college, someone actually did touch my eardrum with some mold material. It's a long story, but it did touch my eardrum, and it's a massive pain, and I know for my own customers and patients, it is a huge pain. And an acute sharp pain, and it's really, really sore. Not to mention, if you actually did get a perforation, it's going to be a massive problem. I'm not poo-pooing it. I'm just saying, if you can't see what you're doing then your ear canal, I would be very, very wary about what you do.
Okay, we have 2 questions, and we also have to talk about the pain genie, and we've only about 7 minutes left. So if we can quick fire these 2 questions over to you, Kevin.
But you know me, Alan, I don't like to talk.
Yeah. So if we can quick fire these over to you, and then we'll quickly mention the pain genie, and we'll be sorted. Steve.
Okay, I think this is a kind of a tongue-in-cheek one, but Chris is wondering, do earwigs really get into your ears, or is that just a myth? Do they go into your ears?
They do.
What do they want?
But no more or no less than any other bugs, they do. I mean, my start in the hearing aid world was repairing hearing aids, and I do recall, as a 20-something-year-old repairing hearing aids in Dublin, opening up a hearing aid, one of these custom ones that went right into the ear canal, and not one but 2 earwigs came out of the hearing aid. The only way they got into it was in the ear. So yeah, they do, but no more than any other bugs like mites or, tiny spiders I've seen in ear canals. I've seen most of them, little ants, everything, but not that, I don't know why they got the name earwigs, but no more than any other bug, but yes, they do.
Okay.
Dougie, wasn't expecting that question.
No, okay. Dougie said the rise in DIY must be a factor. He said each power tool tells you what the noise level is, and ear defenders should be at the same level. So, I suppose a lot of people actually doing the DIY as well, where we kind of think, I'll be grand, I'll only be using this high-powered drill for a couple of minutes. Is that enough to kind of start you on the rocky road?
It is. Absolutely. There are a lot of domestic sounds, sharp sounds, as you say, DIY drills, etc., that as you say, it might be only a few moments or a few seconds, but actually that initial high burst is enough just to start you, as you say, in the rocky road. Now, if it's a lower volume, then it has to be for over a longer term. But I think it was around about 1996 that it came into law that ear protectors had to be worn on building sites, etc. And one of the things that we would advocate in HearAll Hearing is to protect your hearing, protect what you have. So if you're out cutting the lawn, sitting on one of the ride-ons, put on your ear muffers. If you're drilling a hole in the wall to hang up a bracket for a television, put on your earmuffs. I know it's a pain. I know it's one of these things that you kind of go, gosh, where is it? It's down in the shed somewhere. I have to go and get it. It takes a few minutes, put it on. But actually, if it protects your long-term hearing, then it's well worth those few seconds, a few minutes of inconvenience.
Yeah, but what about now for items like your lawnmower? I mean, my petrol lawnmower, I think it says on it 96 decibels.
Wear your earmuffs.
So we should be,
If it's petrol, I think once we're coming up around 80, DB, you definitely want your earmuffs on. And look, obviously outdoors that sounds going to disperse a bit more, but I would definitely recommend it. And you know, ride-on's even louder again. But even a push, as they say, push petrol lawnmower, yeah, absolutely. You know, you've got to start thinking of protection of your hearing. It's not your hearing is not an infinite thing. It's a finite thing, and it's not a case of, you know, if it starts to go down, sure, we'll go down to the reservoir and grab a bit more. There is no more.
Yeah, when it's gone, it's gone, isn't it? Okay, Kevin, let's have a quick chat about the Pain Genie. Because when you came and visit me to do the hearing, you said to me that you had a complaint that your shoulder. You just happened to mention it because I seen you down in the men's shed, and I think we got talking about the Pain Genie. And when you came to me, you said, "Oh yeah, I have a problem with my shoulder." Do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, well, I'm sort of laughing here because I'm still kind of trying to think what the hell happened, right? So I recall, I don't know if you remember, but when I got out of the car to come to your house, I was carrying an audiometer, which we use for testing hearing, and I had to move it from my left arm into my right arm because the back of my left shoulder was a really, really sore pain. And I remember talking to you about it, and you sort of saying, well, you know, is it something that's ongoing? Is it deep? Where is it? Blah, blah, blah. And I just thought, this is nonsense, right? He's asked me about stuff that he knows nothing about. And as I sort of discussed it with you a little bit more, Alan, if you remember, you showed me this Pain Genie. And I just looked at this little machine and I said, it's no bigger than a razor. Like, this is nonsense, like absolute nonsense. But in fairness, I was in a hell of a lot of pain with my shoulder. And this is a pain that I've had going on for maybe 7, 8 years, maybe more. And it's not a pain that's there all the time. It was a pain in the back of my shoulder that would come and go. But when it would come, it would put me in a situation where I could almost nearly have to roll out of bed to get up. I would be in such pain I couldn't carry anything in my arm. I would find it difficult to drive. I would have to take an awful lot of painkillers to get me through a day, you know, pain-free. And it wouldn't be pain-free. The throbbing pain would always be there. And you tried this Pain Genie thing on me, and I thought, look, I'll give anything a go. I'm in that much pain. I don't really care. And actually, I was really surprised when I got back into my car and started driving. I was like, wow, my shoulder just feels really loose. And what you did, if I could describe it, was, and you can tell me this is right or wrong, but my recollection is that you kind of picked a few points on my back with this Pain Genie, which is, you kind of tingled my back with some sort of electric pulse. Now, it might have been electric, it might not have been, but it felt like an electric pulse into my shoulder. And you concentrated on the area where I said I had this pain. And I went off driving away and I thought, that was ridiculous. That didn't work. And then all of a sudden I went, actually, my shoulder's really loose. This is really working really well. And I was amazed, absolutely amazed. And I remember I rang you and I said, I can't believe it. I said, I don't know what you did. I don't even know if you did anything, but wow, it feels great. But then about 4 or 5 hours later on, the pain came back. And I have to be honest, it was worse than it was when I first went in. And I thought, something's not right here. But then I recalled you said something to me along the lines of, if the pain has been there for a long time, the Pain Genie will help you to go back in time and bring forward the pain, or go back in time and bring the pain out and then treat it. Yeah. So I went back to you for a second treatment. And at that second treatment, you did it was certainly a bit more intense, we'll say, than the first one. And there are other areas that you touched on with that Pain Genie. But because I got that relief initially the first time, I thought, you know what, maybe there's something here that I'm not seeing, that I'm missing. So I went back to you and you did it the second time. And when I left, I thought, okay, back to the way it was. There's no pain again. Great. It'll come back in a few hours. Now, that must have been about 8 or 9 weeks ago, if not more. Probably more, actually, maybe 12 weeks ago. And I still, to this day, have no pain come back into that shoulder whatsoever, which is absolutely unheard of for me. Over the last 7 or 8 years, I would have pain at least for a week solid, 2 weeks solid, maybe 3 or 4 days worth no pain, and then another week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks solid, and another couple of days. We're looking at, I think it is up to 12 weeks now, Alan, since I was with you then.
Yeah, it was a while.
And there's no pain whatsoever. And what struck me was the way you described it as, you know, kind of sucking out the deep pain, because it was there for such a long time that it had to come out and it would take 2, maybe 3 sessions. But actually it was 2 sessions and I still have no pain. And I kind of chuckled when you mentioned it at the beginning there, because, Alan, to be honest with you, I have no way of quantifying this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have any way of quantifying it except to say I don't have any pain.
Well, people do laugh because when you treat them and they stand up, or after a few minutes and the pain is gone, they're just so amazed at it. They just think, I was in pain a few minutes ago and now I've no pain. And they just can't understand the concept of the pain genie and how it works. And you were right, exactly what you said there, you're bang on. Basically what it does is you heal back in time, so you're bringing out the pain, so you go through a healing crisis. So the pain might get worse before it gets better, but that's because the pain is coming out. You're bringing it out, and then you're treating it again. And that's exactly what we did with yourself. And happy days. 2 treatments and that was it, sorted.
Well, I can't say it didn't work, and absolutely, I can't say what did work, but I can only say that I don't feel the pain anymore, and it's as simple as that.
That's it.
I would recommend everyone and anyone that has access to one of these pain genies, or to get in touch with yourself and arrange to come and see you, because I'm stuttering as I talk, which is not like me, but I've no way of quantifying it. I'm flabbergasted that it worked. I'm amazed that it worked. I nearly don't believe that it worked, but it's like the Doubting Thomas. The fact that I've seen it and witnessed it and felt it, I know it works.
Exactly, and that's where myself and Steve felt when we were treated by Richard originally, and that really changed their mind to the benefits of Pain Genie. Well, that's brilliant. That's great news. I'm glad you're not in pain. We've reached that time. Unfortunately, we're going to have to let you go, but thanks a lot, Kevin, for coming on the show. Much appreciated to tell us all about the hearing and how important it is to get your ears tested. I'm going to pass you over to Steve. Steve's going to get all your contact details and where
Lovely.
people can find you.
Yeah, great information.
Thanks very much for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Not about it. Yeah, there's loads of positive comments coming in on the chat rooms. Wanting to thank you for sharing the information with us this evening, Kevin. If people want to find out more information about your particular business and where they can seek treatment should they require it, can you give us your website there and any other contact details that you want?
If people want to log on and have a look, it's www.HearAllHearing, HearAllHearing, HearAllHearing.ie, or they can email me, info@HearAllHearing.ie, and they can follow us on Facebook as well. Also, if they want to contact me, they can call me on my mobile phone number, which is 087 450 5960. And, text, anything like that at all, and I will certainly get back in touch with people.
And you offer free hearing tests in the locality, don't you?
Free hearing tests in the local area here, which covers Ashbourne, Athboy, Clonmellon and Castlepollard and all surrounding areas.
Brilliant stuff. All right, Kevin, stay with us there. We're just going to pop over to a musical break and we'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com and peoplesinternetradio.com.
You heard it through the grapevine. Yeah, just in relation to Kevin's question there. Sorry, I do apologise. There were some questions that we just didn't get to because of time constraints, but if we do have Kevin on again, we will definitely ask the questions. But he did want to comment, answer Dave T's question about is the large increase in hearing aids due to people having unprotected phone sex? He said no. But thanks for the question.
Very good. Right, one of the things that I posted up on my personal Facebook page today, and I think it's something that we should be all aware of, and I'm sure we are, and a lot of people have kind of liked it and commented, and they said, yeah, actually, we've been affected by this as well. And I suppose we have to get away from the 3D way of thinking and start looking at the 5D way of thinking. And maybe it's got to do with the I don't know, energies hitting the planet, I don't know. But I call these people the 2 + 2 = 5 people. I'm sure we've all come across them. And, they will take a story and they'll embellish it and convince themselves that the story is true, and then get a kick out of telling people about their embellished story. A lot of the time the embellishment is to add some flavour to it, to make it more interesting. These people are very dangerous, and you have to, maybe you just have a boring life, I don't know, and you get a kick out of doing this, but they seem to have no consideration for the real truth, and the damage they could cause to people. So my own advice is either stay away from these people, and if you can't stay away from them and they give you a Jackanory story, ask them for the evidence and the proof. That's usually where their story fails. It falls apart. But they'll try cover it up because they don't want to be seen as wrong, or they don't want to be cut out. Remember, there's always two sides to a story. Don't be ignorant by just listening to one side. Mind you, the more you get to know people and what they're like, the more people have said they want to stay with nature and their pets and keep away from human beings, so I can understand that. I personally would, again, going back to the evidence, one of the things, if people do come up and talk to you and say something, I would kind of say, and I think I'm going to change my view from a 3D to a 5D view now, is to say, okay, well, the person you've just mentioned, if it's possible, I'll go to that person and I'll ask them direct, and I'll say to them, this person's saying that about you. Is that true, what they're saying? And, again, that kind of calls the bluff as well, because that's something that they probably don't want you to do. And just remember that if they're telling you stories about somebody that probably aren't true, then chances are they're telling stories about you to other people that probably aren't true. So you just have to kind of be aware of that. And maybe it's just a new way of, the new way we have to be thinking out of the 3D, the old way of 3D thinking, get rid of that and get into the new way of 3D thinking. And because that's very divide and conquer, that's a very divide and conquer approach in society, and we want to kind of get away from that. And I'm kind of, more analysing things more and more, how people interact with each other. And something like that, there is a law out there called the, defamation of character. And the libel is when somebody writes something about you, and the slander is when somebody says something about you. And we do have laws in place for people like that. Maybe they're bored, maybe they're sad, maybe they don't have an exciting life, and they just feel by doing something like that adds a bit of spice to it. But people can get into trouble with that. So just keep that in mind. And that's why the more and more I think you wake up consciously to what's going on with the energies and everything else, the more and more you move away from people, and you don't want to be within negative people or negative energies around you. And your circle of friends gets smaller and smaller. You can kind of understand it in a way. Now, I'm going to have to give a mention to what was said about the 31st of July. We had the lunar eclipse on the Friday, and obviously we couldn't see it here in Ireland because the sky was full of clouds. Some people said you're not supposed to look at it anyway for some strange reason. But we see it on the internet. It actually happened. And the 31st of July has been made by a couple of people on the internet saying that certain things were going to happen. We don't know. Maybe the big flash might happen. That's one of the things. Secure Team 10 said that it's been reported that a big flash happened in the universe, and that flash is on the way to hit the planet. Is it going to hit us on the 31st? Or maybe it won't hit us at all. If you want to go over to Secure Team 10, the YouTube channel, they talk about that if you want to check it out. Lisa Harrison obviously mentions the 31st of July, speaking to a character called Lilu, who said that something's going to happen. 12:37 a.m. Queensland's time, which is 12:37 p.m. Queensland's time, which is 3:37 a.m. GMT in the morning. If anybody does feel anything or a change or effect or anything, email us at info@oymradio.com and let us know if you do feel a change or anything. We know the energies are ramping up, and a lot of people are feeling all different things. Myself and Steve, just before the show, were talking about this.
We were comparing aches and pains, like two elfless.
Old age, stuffing cotton buds in their ears and drinking cabbage juice. And we were talking about, how we feel and the energies, and we have similar kind of feelings about certain things. I'm sure other people on the internet are experiencing different things. But, you know what, as I say, we're all tired. We're all been doing this for a long time. A lot of people out there have been waking up and trying to wake people up. And, maybe if the flash does happen and something happens, it'd be fantastic. We don't think. We did talk about it.
Yeah.
And we said, Monday, Tuesday is going to come and go, and it'll be normal. But, hey, if it does happen, happy days. We're very open-minded to it, but we just feel that, dates have come and gone, as you know, for a long time. So for entertainment purposes only, we're just saying this because, dates come and go all the time. So for a bit of fun, we just said we'd mention it and put it out there, and just, see if anybody has any feedback, if anybody does have any experience. Now, the guest on the show next week is going to be very interesting. We've asked Jonathan Irwin back on the show. Jonathan Irwin is the founder of the Jack and Jill Foundation, and they help kids. And I think he's left it now, but they started it, and his own daughter was badly affected by the HPV vaccine. And he was convinced as a parent that it was the right thing to do, get your kids vaccinated, and obviously she had an adverse reaction to the vaccine. So we asked Jonathan to come on to do a full show because we really want to get into this subject matter. And you heard Jillian earlier on talking about HPV vaccine and the virus and everything else. So that will be of interest to talk about it. Steve, do you have anything you want to add? Anything that you're planning this week?
I just want to, not going to be planning anything really. I just want to mention, as we normally do, that, we're going to be heading bye-byes very shortly, and Steve Roberts is going to be in the chair on PIR at 9 o'clock, so stay tuned for that. And we've been asked to give a plug for Meandering Monday, tomorrow night, Monday, on People's Internet Radio. That's the 30th of July, and the team there are going to be having a chat with Mark Steele about 5G. What am I going to be doing during the week? Well, I'm back to work tomorrow, so it's nose to the grindstone once again. The weather-wise over here, for anyone who's not kind of in Ireland, we were having a heat wave and a lot of good, fantastic weather for a change. It's kind of rainy and overcast now at the moment, so I believe that's to continue for the week. And then the week after that, we're supposed to be back to good weather, allegedly. So, yeah, I can't wait for that.
Okay, and very quickly, I just announced Thomas is very busy, as you know, over at THI. I believe he's doing a show tonight, 4:30 his time, which I think is 9:30 air time. So at 9:30 tonight, I think, don't quote me on it, but if you go over to THI on the Facebook page, or maybe the People's, I think it's, what is it, People's Club. The peoplesclub.org. Yes. I think it's called the peoplesclub.org. But if you go over to THI on the Facebook page anyway, there should be information up there. I think it's 4:30 his time, which is 9:30 air time. And Thomas has been very busy, and he's going to be revealing some more intel, I believe, as well. So if you want to catch that as well, that's where he's going to be. For myself and Steve, we've reached that time. For myself, Alan James, take it easy. Hope you enjoy the show. Have a great week. Stay safe. And take care of yourself. Bye-bye.
Open your mind.